Hello guys, and welcome to another hangout with the International Force Rape Timeline. This one will be fairly short and hopefully a little humorous because it's about one woman basically and her opinions. A while ago I attended a meeting. I won't give too much detail here, but one of the speakers was ALESSIA Tranchese. I don't know if I pronounced that right. It appears to be an actress or something, and some famous person or semi-famous person of the same name. But this ALESSIA Trance is, by her own admission, on the faculty of the University of Portsmouth, a media-ready expert. And her subjects are, among others, Centre for Cybercrime and Economic Crime, Sociology and Social Theory Research Group, Women's and Gender Studies Research Group. Anytime I hear the phrase gender studies, I can't help but laugh at women's studies. She wasn't the only such speaker at this meeting. I really listened only to her, and then I made my excuses and left, in a manner of speaking. And this, especially, she was talking rubbish about rape. The subject was the way the media reports rape and alleged rape. She's associated with the End Violence Against Women Coalition, which is, well, a horrible collection of, how can I put it? This is what these Harpers said about a certain Mr. Robinson in 2019. Tommy Robinson's factually incorrect messages about grooming and his attempt to portray himself as a champion of the cause are an insult to survivors of abuse. Well, actually, he is rather a champion of the cause. Claiming here is a misogynist. Really? And you'll notice at the bottom of the page there's a button for exiting the website, just in case your husband, lover, man in your life comes in and beats you up for looking at this, as though he couldn't check your internet history. This is the sort of people who are campaigning against gendered violence, whatever you want to call it. Interpersonal violence is far more accurate, and has been making misleading statements about these rape gangs. Well, take a gander at these. Further comment would be superfluous. Anyway, as I said, this is Alessia talking rubbish about rape. And she starts off rape myths. She says there are three principal rape myths. The violent stranger, that women lie about being raped, and 0.6% of reports in the UK are false, implying that the vast majority are not false. Whenever I hear the phrase rape myths, I substitute a phrase of my own: believe women. We're meant to believe women, whatever. Anytime a woman cries rape, believe her. If she claims to have been raped 6 months ago by a bloke she was dating last month, believe her. Why would a woman lie? The reality, of course, is that women do lie about rape, and sometimes men get away with it. Let's not beat about the bush. The jury system requires the case be proved beyond all reasonable doubt. Some people are going to get away with all sorts of crimes, including murder on that account, well, yeah, tough. That's because the alternative is far, far worse. Now, when it comes to believing women, how about we believe evidence? The reality is that not all allegations of rape are equally credible. Allegations of anything, especially where there's alcohol involved, recreational drugs, and women who are seriously not right in the head. I want to imagine this scenario. A woman phones the police. I've just been raped. She claims a man broke into her home while she was asleep, put a knife to her neck and raped her. He appears to have entered through a window. There is evidence that she's been brutalised, physical evidence, maybe even disrupted furniture. She's a credible accuser, a credible victim, or as they say in Scotland, a complainer. Now, she may be telling a pack of lies, she may have made the whole thing up. Police can't work at that assumption, she may have done. A woman who walks into a police station and claims to have been raped 2 years ago, but now she only has got the courage to report it by a named individual or by a stranger. How credible is she? A lot less credible. Now, it may be that the woman who was raped in her own home, allegedly, was making it up, and this woman, this contumelious delay, maybe that she's telling the truth. But which is the most credible? You know, rumours can be true. The most outrageous, scurrilous rumours can be true. Evidence given under oath, apparently compelling, can be a tissue of lies. But we always give more weight to evidence given under oath than we do to rumours. We should do. So that's the first of a principal rape myths. The violent stranger. Well, the majority of rapes with a capital R, are actually committed by strangers, strange men usually. A woman can be convicted of rape, rightly, but usually women don't do that sort of thing. If a woman is a member of a gang which rapes a woman, then she can be convicted of rape. This grooming gang scandal, there have actually been women members of the gangs, white women. So it is the violent stranger. It is the violent stranger, most of all. And nowadays, most of these violent strangers have turned up in this country in small boats. We don't know who they are, where they come from. And they're not all rapists. Some of them, like this man, are simply evil beyond belief. Women lie about being raped. Yeah, we've covered that, but she said in her speech that 0.6% of reports in the UK are false. This is a case of lying with statistics. Whenever you hear statistics about rape, sexual violence, I don't like the phrase sexual violence because, rape. But whenever you hear statistics thrown around, not just here, but the race industry uses it, all sorts of lobbies and pressure groups use it. These statistics, they literally pluck them out of thin air. This hasn't quite been plucked out of thin air. What it is, I'll put an image on the screen. I published an article about this called The Great BuzzFeed Vulnerable Women Hoax. This is a particularly outrageous article because it takes two cases, that of Rhiannon Brooker and Eleanor de Freitas, who were women who clearly made false allegations. Freitas ended up committing suicide. She was seriously not around the head. Brooker, that was absolutely outrageous, the length she went to frame Paul Fensom, just absolutely outrageous. And they portray both her and Brooker, both Brooker and Freitas as innocent. No. Victims, no. They point out that a tiny percentage of women are prosecuted for making false rape allegations, although 200 there is quite a large number. But these are only women who are prosecuted for perverting the course of justice. Lots of women, they will receive, in some cases, a fixed penalty notice. Some will be cautioned. No action will be taken against them at all. Recently, there was an incredible case in Epsom of a woman who we still don't know quite what happened, but she'd been drinking. She fell over, hit her head, and thought she'd been gang raped. Well, that's the story that the police are feeding us. But no rape happened. There was considerable public anger in the area because it was believed she'd been attacked by migrants. And at that time, there were actually 3 lowlifes from the Middle East on trial at Ho Crown Court for raping a woman in Brighton under broadly similar circumstances. She left a nightclub, had too much to drink, and they dragged her to Brighton Beach, gang raped her, videoed it. It turned out that one of these scum, that's what they are, scum, was convicted of murder in Egypt in absentia. So it was hardly surprising that people in the Epsom area, Epsom town, jumped to the wrong conclusion. But that, as I say, that is a very high profile case. Lots of cases of false rape allegations. They are reported in the local press. There may be just a report of a rape, but then no follow-up. I've mentioned this before. Lady Colin Campbell is the owner of Castle Goring, and she related a case of a false rape allegation there. What happened was that one of her sons was running a music festival, and one morning she came down, she got up early, and there was rather strange activity happening on the lawn outside the castle, and it turned out the police were investigating an allegation of rape. And it turned out, she said, that there was no rape at all. What happened was that a young lady had gone to this festival with a boyfriend and had got down on her knees with another man and cried rape. Now that was actually reported in the press. It was reported in the local press and in the Daily Mail, the online mail. The initial rape allegation was, and there was a photo fit, a police composite drawing, whatever, of the perpetrator who didn't exist. That was reported, but as far as I know, as far as I can tell, the only report of the non-rape was made by Lady Colin Campbell.
We were told a cock and bull story about an accusation that some girl had made against some guy. Turns out somebody she fancied. And when we investigated, it turned out that she had slipped to the other side of the castle with the young man and was caught by one of the security guards on her knees while he was standing up. And of course, they were promptly moved on back to the party. She gets home, and obviously the boyfriend must have said something to her. And she cried the 4-letter word beginning with R, you know, the AP word. So the police were here combing the place for evidence. And when they told us the story, we said, excuse me, that doesn't make sense. First of all, floodlights shine on where he is supposed to have done the dirty deed. Secondly, this story doesn't make sense. It's a floodlit area. It's on the side of the castle, but the floodlights shine directly onto it. Anyway, to cut a long story short, she had obviously retired to the bushes with the object of her ardour. And when she got home and the boyfriend would have noticed that she was in a state of déshabillé, out came the accusation. And I was spitting mad because the police, even though we had pointed out to them that the story could not be true, commended her for her bravery in coming forward to the press. Then, of course, they had to drop it.
So you have to ask how many rapes are not really rapes, how many rapes are reported, and then nothing happens. I've found many cases, some of women who claim to have been attacked by multiple men, and there's no follow-up. And to this we should add that because of lax penalties for false accusers, and in many cases no penalties at all, and the rewards of playing the victim, there are many false rape allegations. India has a very specific problem of false rape allegations. Rape in India has a very broader meaning than it does elsewhere. I'll leave it at that. You can check the timeline for many cases from India. Next, our feminist academic says, women's words are often taken as allegations that need to be substantiated by facts. Amazing that, isn't it? Men's words are presented as denials that need no justification. Well, allegations must be proved. In fact, that's only half the story, because men, very often, men who've been falsely accused of rape will tell you that they've been ostracised. Sometimes they've been remanded in custody and been treated very badly, but not by prison staff, but by other inmates. It is well known that you have a scale of a totem pole of oppression, if you like, intersectionality within the prisons. At the bottom are, well, you've got rapists, and at the bottom you've got child rapists, child abusers, child sex abusers, child rapists, and child killers. And in fact, quite a few men have been murdered in prison. A while ago, Ian Watkins, a notorious case, he was murdered in prison. Ian Huntley, who was not a child rapist, but actually he almost certainly raped a number of women, teenagers, when he was living in Hull. He was murdered in prison by a bloke who was just as bad as him. So women's words are often taken as allegations that need to be substantiated. Well, this isn't just apply to women. Anybody who makes an allegation, if it's a serious allegation and the police decide to investigate, you know, the accused is entitled to the presumption of innocence, although he doesn't always get it from the public. And she says that this is especially true when the man accused is white or powerful. The reality is that, let's forget about the race. Also dragging race, don't they? The reality is, and I've said this many times, and I keep saying it, is there are different rules for people in the public eye, for politicians, be they powerful or not, for musicians, actors, business people, lawyers, anyone who's in the public eye a lot or even a little. Anyone who has a few hundred followers on Instagram can be falsely accused. Women are falsely accused as well, not of rape, obviously, but firstly, there are basically two types of allegations which are largely made against politicians and powerful people. One is sexual misconduct. In the case of men, it could be rape or lesser offences. In the case of women, it could be sleeping their way to the top. And finance, that they can all be accused of fraud or various financial transgressions. Sometimes, perhaps often, these allegations are true. But of late, since especially this hashtag #MeToo nonsense, it's madness. We've seen black propaganda campaigns used against men. Donald Trump's been accused by God knows how many women. What these allegations have in common, what they all have in common, is that they weren't made at the time. The most notorious and outrageous allegations are one that he raped a 13-year-old girl with Jeffrey Epstein, complete nonsense, and the other lunatic allegation by a woman who's a certified lunatic, E. Jean Carroll, was that he raped her in the lingerie department of Bergdorf Goodman. She based that allegation on a 2012 American crime series in which a judge had a fantasy about raping a woman in the same department. He paid a woman to act out his fantasy, and she ended up being murdered. Our distinguished feminist academic makes a lot about social media. Says in 2012 it really went mainstream. Yes, and look at the result. The thing I will say here is that the same type of people, sometimes the very same people who make false allegations against men, make disparaging allegations against women. We're supposed to assume that the men accused are generally predators or whatever, and that the women have been falsely accused, as they are most of the time. She doesn't twig with her people like her. She talks about black and minoritized women often receiving less attention. Well, no. Has she not heard of Tawana Brawley, a classic hoax, or Duke Lacrosse case? Tawana Brawley was a teenager, underage teen. So that case obviously received quite a bit of attention. Duke Lacrosse, well, that was disgraceful. And then we come to the statistics again. 1 in 20 women are raped or subjected to serious sexual assaults by the time they're 60. No, they're not. No. Treating victims and perpetrators in the same way is in fairness. How about alleged perpetrators? Let's assume the victims are real and the perpetrators are alleged. What's wrong with that? Women are routinely disbelieved. Well, yeah, they are. Especially women like you. And she goes on about structural inequality, rubbish like that. This isn't just down to her though. This is the way all these feminist airheads think, and the problem is, it's a very big problem, is that they've had enormous effect on legislation and on criminal procedures. Most of these effects have been very bad. They've succeeded in removing the not proven verdict in Scotland. They're trying to get rid of jury trials. In some cases, there's already been pre-recorded cross-examination, and basically the erasure of due process. This is what this is all about. So anyway, I'll leave it there. I'll just point out again that ALESSIA is indeed a suitable case for treatment, but sadly so are almost all the women who work in this field, certainly the feminists amongst them, which is the vast majority.